Thank you for that unbelievably and overly flattering introduction. I am really pleased my family was here to hear that. In particular, my mother-in-law. Actually, today is a special day for our family because if my father was alive, it would be his 84th birthday. And since he predicted that I would either go to prison or be the president, neither of which has happened, this is a pretty good honor to happen. It's also just a pleasure to be here at Dwight-Englewood. And I say to all of you graduates, you are leaving today the finest preparatory school in the world. Now, I knew before, but watching today's performances and hearing these speeches and readings, it's a pretty daunting challenge to speak to you, this impressive group. You have such a bright future. You have such strong skills. You have iPhones at the ready to jump off of my speech and onto Instagram. So I'll have to stay on my toes. Class of 2015, you are graduating today at an incredibly complex and very exciting time. Opportunities abound and risks are ever present. You just need to read the headlines to be amazed. An Islamic State sends agents to the U.S. to commit terrorism, and the U.S. sends troops to retaliate. The Secretary of State is negotiating a landmark agreement with Iran. The national debt is hitting worrying levels. China now leads the world economy. It's the end of an era on television as the nation's anchor resigns. A new car is launched that may revolutionize the way you drive. And Silicon Valley amazes the world, as always, with the latest mobile computing device. No matter whether you read the New York Times or the Bergen Record or just your Twitter feed, all of these events should be familiar to you, and if I know Dwight-Englewood students, you all have an opinion on them. But let me tell you, none of those headlines are from today. They're all from 1981, when I graduated. The nation was not, in fact, ISIS. It was Libya, and the U.S. blocked 1,500 people from entering the country and shot down 2 jet planes. The Secretary of State was Al Haig, not John Kerry, and Iran finally released 52 American hostages. Congress approved a record $1 trillion debt ceiling, not the $20 trillion that we have today. And it wasn't the CEO of Alibaba at his IPO, it was Deng Xiaoping who drank his first Coca-Cola. He called it Happy Taste, and he welcomed the U.S. to China. And that retiring anchor was not David Letterman, it was Walter Cronkite. You get the picture. By the way, if you're interested, the car was a DeLorean, which was a flop, but it was made famous by Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. It wasn't a Tesla. And that mobile computing device is not this Apple Watch. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. It was called the Osborne. The Osborne was the first portable computer. It weighed 26 pounds. And less computing device than this watch. Now, I handpicked those messages for one reason, which is to tell you graduates that I have been exactly where you are today, 34 years ago. In 1981, my class, 110 students, sat in these seats in Leggett Field. We were surrounded by our family, our closest friends, the young men, the women that we experienced the great thrills of youth. We had soccer victories with Coach Schmidt. We trained for cross-country meets with Mr. Krautheimer. We studied Greek and Roman history. We went to many Bruce Springsteen concerts. We went to endless parties at Bill Smee's house. And I have vivid memories of painting the gym roof behind us to honor the class of 1981, and that seemed like a really big risk at the time. Like you, my classmates formed friendships that stayed with us for our lifetime. Like you, we were ready to leave home and head off to prestigious schools. And like you, we were all preparing in our different ways to take our next great leap forward. Once this hot and long ceremony ended. For me, Senator Bill Bradley, the former New York Knick and presidential candidate, spoke at graduation. I remember a phenomenal, high-minded, and energetic address. But I want to tell you a secret. I can't remember a single word he said. Now that disappoints me, but I think it will help you, because I will make only 3 basic points as I embark upon this awesome responsibility of speaking to you today. But first, I want to come back to this Apple Watch. I have traveled nearly 3 weeks a month for 20 years. I have gone to 70 countries and every major capital. So for me, I embrace every technology that allows me to communicate better, faster, quicker, more consistently. This watch does that, and this watch does that very well. But it has one most important capability, and it's its most basic. It tells time. Indeed, the Apple Watch is so advanced that it actually has a setting that allows you to set time ahead. You can move it forward by a fixed number of minutes that you choose permanently. Think about it, your own personal time zone. Just imagine when time runs out in reality, you will always have those few extra minutes, a brief window of time. Now this window, and what you do with it, is actually what I want to talk to you about today. Indeed, if there's one thing I want you to remember from my address, it's this. Time is the only commodity that matters. Let me repeat that. Time is the only commodity that matters. You may feel as you sit here today that you have all the time in the world. But never forget, time wasted, unlike anything else, your possessions, your friends, your money, can never be regained. Time is not fungible. Time tomorrow will not be the same as time today. Your time cannot be replaced by anyone else's time. I consider this. You will never have the morning of your high school graduation again. Perhaps to surprise you as you look forward to college, you will have only 130 Saturday nights at college. Don't be disappointed. But also, don't fall prey to what I call the fallacy of later. And don't be convinced with the words next time. I hope you find the notion that I put forward of extra time maybe inspiring, and after all, I know it's corny, but the Dwight-Englewood yearbook says, carpe diem, seize the day. And I know you'll chuckle at this, my family chuckles at this. But every morning for more than 35 years, I have said the same words to myself in the shower. Today is your day. And I have believed it every day. I've also learned that time is a gift that only exists for you when you are present. There's no substitute for showing up. It's simply axiomatic. Now, I'm a fortunate and I'm a grateful man, but every opportunity that I've had, everything that I've done that I'm proud of, began with a simple decision to be physically present. Class of 2015, when I sat where you are today on this patch of grass, I guess it's now AstroTurf, I didn't have any plans to go any further than Philadelphia. I started my career 30 years ago, like many of you will. I had a simple determination, never to hold a real job and never to have an actual boss. I instead wanted to enjoy what I did. Intuitively, I only knew one thing. I wanted to excel, and I wanted to master my field. So my work and my life quickly became entirely entwined. In fact, they were a bit of a blended blur. I was completely aware that if I didn't commit to my work entirely, I would not excel. And just as clearly, I knew that if I did not thoroughly love my work, I'd be miserable. And that was a strategy that worked incredibly well for about 24 years. By 2008, I had the privilege, as you heard a moment ago, to advise some of the smartest people in the world during some of the most complex events of their business careers. From New York to Beijing, from London to Riyadh, I became a guy that you could trust to solve problems. I was sort of a corporate Ray Donovan, if that makes sense to you. Miraculously, along the way, I found the woman I love, and I had 2 great children. And then all of a sudden, the world changed. My industry, the government, investors, we drove the global financial system off a cliff. And as we stared into an abyss, my daily life was turned upside down. It was no longer a business that I knew, that I could be proud of. I no longer was called upon to solve other people's problems. We were forced to fight for our own survival. And survival meant raising tens of billions of dollars in a matter of weeks just to make sure our bank wouldn't fail and wouldn't take the country with it. It was the most challenging period of my life by far. I kept a quote from Winston Churchill on my desk that said, "If you find yourself going through hell, just keep going." And that's what we did. Thankfully, we succeeded. And when the storm clouds quieted, and after too many mornings in the shower, when I actually felt that the day was not my day, I made a decision. I thought I could be making greater impact. So I did something unthinkable. At the age of 44, I retired. Sort of. And that's when life got really, really, really interesting for me. 1 month after I retired, the financial markets actually entered complete and utter meltdown. You were all not yet in high school when Lehman Brothers, the storied investment bank, collapsed. There was quite literally panic in the streets, as many in this audience will know. And at that moment, whether I was prescient or more likely just plain lucky, I found myself in exactly that place that I intended to be. Able to assist with a lifelong career of solving problems and ready. Alongside a team that spanned continents, we worked day and night to unwind the morass that was Lehman Brothers. In the end, we actually saved a large part of the company, and 40,000 people kept their jobs. And for a moment, we stemmed a global tide. And when it was done, I have to say I was exhausted, but I was completely exhilarated. I caught my breath. I took some time with my family at the beach. And I received a call from the then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown. I thought it was going to be a congratulatory call, but it wasn't. It was a request. He asked me to come back to London, and he said the banks were about to collapse there in the same way as they almost collapsed in the U.S. Now, I was tired, and I'm not a British citizen, and I certainly wasn't about to be paid. But I had committed to his trust, and I knew that things were badly broken, and I thought maybe I had a little bit of experience to help. So within 3 hours, I was on a plane to London. The next 5 days and the next 5 months were life-changing for me. A small group of us sitting in 10 Downing Street helped to devise a plan that saved the UK financial system. A plan that helped to avert a run on the banks in the US and Europe, and maybe, just a plan that helped to prevent the Second Great Depression. Now, graduates, I could have skipped that flight. I could have relaxed on the beach. Perhaps a different plan would have been launched, and perhaps not. But because I had extra time, and because I showed up, I was able to contribute in just a small way, but at a big moment of great need. As you go through life, you will find that opportunities are offered or created that will only emerge for a moment, like a temporary fold in the universe. These moments are moments to succeed, to create great wealth, or to advance the common good. But you will miss every moment if you're not paying attention to the world around you. We're in an age where we are inundated by connectivity. Twitter, Snapchat. It's easy to miss the opportunities that are staring you in the face, the challenges that demand your attention. As you slip seamlessly between that virtual reality and actual reality, it's never been more important to stay mindful and to physically be present, to be there. I dare say we can't afford it. You are the best and the brightest, the next generation. The world has many challenges, and only you will be there to solve it. So I'd like to close with one more vignette, which I hope illustrates what you can yourself accomplish, and that you can do more than you can imagine. Maybe it'll also answer why there are burlap sacks underneath your chairs. It was just over 10 years ago. It was around New Year's. I found myself in Florida on holiday, but I was also on a conference call strategizing with my global management team. And halfway around the world, one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded triggered a tsunami. Many of you remember this, in the Indian Ocean. It caused shocking devastation. In the end, 220,000 people were killed in Indonesia, Thailand, India, Sri Lanka, the whole region. I had CNN on the background the entire time during our conference call. The tsunami was unrelenting, but it was utterly unrelated to our business. It was completely disconnected from our reality. It probably would have been very easy for us to keep our noses in our Blackberries and on that conference call, but as we saw the crisis unfolding, rather than change the channel, we changed the conversation. We asked the age-old question that was paraphrased by John F. Kennedy: if not us, who? If not now, when? It may sound corny, but with 25,000 clients in these countries that were being impacted, clients that had in their manufacturing facilities food, battery, tents, trucks, telecommunications equipment, we just assumed we could do something. And we were right. To this day, it surprises me that it took one phone call to reach the Secretary General of the United Nations. It took just moments for him to explain that the World Food Program had responsibility for the entire first responder network around the globe. So within 36 hours of the first waves pounding Banda Aceh, we arrived as a complete team in Bangkok. And we began connecting our phone systems, our people, our clients, with all of the UN professionals in every affected country. Now, we were in awe, not just of the devastation, but frankly of these real-world heroes who have so very little and do so very much every single day. Now, when the dust settled, as Dr. Desjardins said, we helped to create a permanent disaster recovery network. It transports life-saving equipment to disaster areas. We revamped the funding model of the UN, and we relied on best practices that we could understand from industry. In the end, I'm told we reduced the time from disaster to relief by up to 80%. But you need to think of that percentage as days and lives saved. Now, that decision to join the UN, find a way to serve, that had to be the most humbling decision I've ever made, and probably the most rewarding. I still, to this day, spend every month on a mission of some kind: Haiti, Guatemala, even in developed countries, Japan, Italy, Switzerland, Mexico. And yes, as my kids remind me, I have a diplomatic passport, which is really very, very cool, but it didn't prevent the speeding ticket. I often think how easy it would have been to let this opportunity pass us by. All I needed to do was shut the news off, head back to the beach, order one more mojito. But that would have been falling prey to the fallacy called later. Now, graduates, especially as you move out of college and into the workforce, you will find that it is very, very, very hard to overcome the inertia of your everyday. the path that you are on when you are looking straight forward and looking down. But take it from me, your lives will be richer, your hearts will be much fuller, our world will be brighter if you just look up. If you seize every moment, if you seize every opportunity, and don't be afraid to put your skills to the ultimate test. Graduates, you will soon say goodbye to Dwight-Englewood, very soon. But you leave this campus and these people, and I promise you it will always be with you. If, as I have, you find that your son's 6th grade teacher was a classmate at Dwight-Englewood, your daughter's teacher is a recent Dwight-Englewood alum, you run into a Dwight-Englewood friend in Toronto you haven't seen in over a decade and agree to work on a project in Chile, and you find at a dinner for the Prime Minister of Turkey that you're seated with a former graduation speaker from Dwight-Englewood. You then realize that Dwight-Englewood holds a very unique space in your life and in the world. In fact, many of the friends that I sat with on Leggett Field for 34 years are people I still share my life with today. Others, as unfortunately you will see 34 years from now, are no longer here. My classmates Richie Silverfine, Charlie Kaplan, are no longer with us, and we miss them very much. So as young as I feel, I say to you today, my entire class has many, many more yesterdays than tomorrows. Our time is racing away from us. Even this Apple Watch is not going to change that. But for you, it's just the beginning. You graduates are just at your start. The question today is where over the next 30 years your lives will take you. And more importantly, where will you take your lives? Never has a group of young men and women been so prepared to lead and so prepared to excel than you. So as I promised, I'm going to close with just 3 suggestions. First, pick your path. Whatever that path is, pick it. As Adam said, find your passion. Find the thing that fills your mind and your soul with intrigue, but whatever you choose, master your craft. You have no excuse but to excel. You have the capacity, you have the means, you simply need the work. Second, take this school, all of its teachings, all of its philosophies, and all the friends you've made, take it with you as you become an adult. It'll serve as a very sturdy foundation for you in all aspects of your life. And finally, set your watches permanently ahead. Make that extra time for yourself, but make very, very, very good use of it. It's your most precious commodity, and it will let you seize every opportunity. Class of 2015, I congratulate you on everything you've accomplished here today. You are a most impressive lot. I cannot wait to see what wonders you achieve. I wish you the best of luck. I thank you, and Godspeed.